So I am joined here today by Justin Giuliani,
Hi.
professional dungeon master, and honestly, all around great guy. I really like this guy.
Aw, James Crane, thank you.
Yeah, thank
Right
you.
back at you, my dude. Uh, yeah, you're good dude. In all fairness, I have known Crane for many, many years, so uh I might be a
That's
little biased towards him, but
really true.
yeah.
God, it has been years from now. Justin and
It,
I met working at a game store
yep.
in Portland, Oregon. They were the best of times. They were certainly the worst of times, and here
Definitely
we
the
are.
worst of times. Can't tell you how many times we were stuck in the back counting used board game pieces and making sure that all the pieces of
Ooh.
Catan are there. And yeah,
I would not suggest it to anyone. You know what's a good game? Small World. You know what's not a good game when you have to count it?
Small
Small
World.
World. So many little cardboard
Oh my
pieces.
God, everything is a piece in Small World. That is, ugh.
So we played many RPGs together, going to the game store. I mean, uh, I would suffice to say that, yeah, except for maybe later years, we got a few
Mhm.
more. But before that, I would say like we were the RPG people at the store.
Oh yeah. And that other guy that also had a beard and glasses that looked like us, Jared. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was a,
yeah,
like, well, I
it
guess
was
I
the
say later
prerequisite.
on, but he worked there before
Yeah.
I did, but then left, then came back. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was a prerequisite if you're gonna be an RPG guy at that store, beard
Yep.
and glasses and slightly questionable disposition.
Yeah.
Um,
No one was going to take you seriously on your RPG recommendations otherwise. It just, like, I don't know. You don't have a beard there, guy.
like, why
Like,
would you? You know? Uh, I kid. I kid.
yeah.
Non-beard having people, you're great and you know your stuff. We are just kind of joking over the fact that we fulfill a very specific stereotype. Um,
My guys with beards and glasses in Portland? Go on.
I know,
Yeah.
wild, right?
Yep.
So, Justin and I are here today to talk about chases in RPGs. Justin ran a game that I was involved in a few weeks ago that had a beautiful, beautiful chase scene in it. And after that game, I was like, man, I want to pick this dude's brain because that was friggin' excellent. Um, but before we really dive into the meat, Justin,
Yeah.
how'd you get into RPGs, man? How did it all start for you?
Oh, okay. So I've been playing for like 25-ish years. I've been playing since I was like 11 or 12, so however many years that is now. I don't even know how old I am these days. But it actually started at a friend's house where we were playing. The first thing I ever played was 3.5 D&D.
So,
And
I spent a
my
lot of time.
friend and another friend were over at his house, and he was like, "Do you guys want to try this game out? It's super duper fun. We should try it, get into it and stuff." And we were like, "Sure." We spent 2.5 hours
Getting ready to
building
do the
characters,
stream.
friend's house, where and trying to figure
We were
out the
playing
rules and everything. And then we finally started, and within 10 minutes, the other player tried killing my player, and we stopped playing.
Oh man,
That was literally the first time I ever played any sort of thing that involved rolling a d20 for stuff. And instead of being like, "Well, this is the dumbest thing ever," I was like, "This is so," and I could just be an orc, and you'll just let me. So after that, I kind of started finding other friends that wanted to play, and thankfully, in my middle school, we actually had a D&D club uh, that I was a part of and
that's
everything, and
awesome.
that's where I got to get my feet like really, really wet and stuff with it. And then, like most people in high school back in the late '90s, early 2000s, I played D&D pretty regularly on Friday nights, but never talked about it during school because I didn't want to get wedgied.
Yeah,
Or
you just
yeah.
didn't do that. Like,
Oh yeah, me and my buddies, we had these massive campaigns that would last for, we'd start on Friday and we'd play through Sunday morning and stuff on these things, and we'd have these deep, huge campaigns and stuff. But when you got to school, you were just like, "Hello, how was your weekend? How about sports?" Like, but so I started playing from then, and then kept playing through college. And then after I got out of college and stuff and started working at the game store, I really got into it more and more, and then started DMing about after the decade of playing. I started really getting my feet wet in DMing and stuff, and then uh tried professional DMing, and I've been doing that for over 5 years now. Um, and it kind of just picked up with I when I was working at the game store, someone sent an email that was like, "Hey, I want someone to DM for me, and I'm willing to pay them." And I was like, "You could do that," and it kind of just went from there. And now it's going pretty well. Uh, I've been having a good time. I run for a bunch of different groups of really imaginative and fun players and stuff. And I also do like, one-shot events and birthday parties. And I've done team building stuff for like people at Intel. I've done like all kinds of DMing for businesses and stuff that are like hip Google businesses that like want to have their employees have a chance to have a dungeon master access. So I did stuff like that. Um, Now I do a bunch of stuff online because the world is in slight apocalypse zone. Um, but yeah, so it's been picking up, and recently I just got picked up by Help Action with our good friend Justin Dixon
Which
and his crew.
you folks probably, well, at least some of you at least, saw the stream I did with Dix a few weeks ago about.
Yeah, Dix.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good guy, knows his stuff. So this is like I heard
Yeah,
about
he's
this
awesome.
like about 30 minutes ago, and I just got really excited. So like, keep your eye on Help Action. This is a good fucking pairing, y'all.
Yeah, so I just started writing. I just wrote my first article for Help Action like the other day. Um, so starting to do stuff with them, and you know, always happy to help Crumbling keep out. And whenever James is like, "Hey, I want to do this," I'm like, "Okay, I'll help. I like role playing."
It's true. I don't think you've ever said no when I'm like, hey, you want to do it? And you're like, yes, absolutely.
So yeah, but I'm at the point now where I'm like most of my week is spent either DM planning or running a game for some various group and stuff like that. So having it be I recently just looked at my hours and stuff and recently just hit full-time status with it, so I'm pretty stoked.
Oh man, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
So
Uh,
um
and I will say, so outside of I also am a professional DM, and outside of the pro games I run, I have like one ongoing. This game is for fun,
yeah.
and I like to keep it really small. And involved in that game is Justin and Dix, and also Brad, who is the other half of Crumbling Keep, who I usually like keep locked in a cage and working, so you really don't see him as much.
Yeah.
But it's like
He's
just
too busy chain smoking anyway to come and talk to us.
I hope he's like secretly watching this right now.
Yeah. Hi, Brad.
Love you, Brad. But yeah, just the amount of creativity that comes out of these guys is just fantastic. And actually, again, that game group is what spawned this talk. Is we were playing through. We've been doing a little bit of rotation as to like who's DMing, and Justin here took a run at Tales from the Loop. And Justin, for folks that don't know, what is Tales from the Loop?
So, Tales from the Loop is it's basically Stranger Things, the role playing game, without it being D&D. But what it is it's set in an alternate universe based off of Simon Stalenhag's artwork. And what it is back in the 50s, they made two different facilities that they used as particle accelerators, and they functioned completely and everything was great. And around these facilities, all kinds of weird sort of anomalies and stuff start springing up. But the key point of the game is that you play as kids in the 80s. And each kid you pick an archetype to be, and you investigate these weird mysteries that are happening throughout your town. It's all about the kids figuring it out on their own, with literally written into the rules every adult in the universe around you is absolutely fucking useless. It's an entirety of Mike, the entire universe of Mike's dad from Stranger Things. And it's a really simple D6 system where you just roll a like fistful of D6s based off of what score you're playing, and you're just fishing for sixes to get successes. The game, if anything, teaches you how hard it is to actually roll a six on a die.
Strangely
Um,
difficult, yeah.
yeah. It either takes place in Sweden or in Nevada.
Yeah,
And
it has two settings in
yeah.
it, Sweden and Nevada.
Yep.
Uh,
Um,
it's a game out of Sweden. It's a Swedish company that makes it,
yeah.
just to kind of put a little perspective on that.
Yay. That's why I sit by the books. This particular campaign that I had the rest of the Crumbling Keep Index guys on was set in a summer camp that I've kind of been creating because 80s summer camp is just like all kinds of fun because you can get anywhere from like Jason, serial killer kind of stuff all the way down to just like weird, strange science experiments going on underneath the place and stuff. So what these guys were playing through was just like your typical kind of summer camp scene, but there were these crow aliens that were like kind of infiltrating and slowly taking over things and stealing stuff throughout the camp. And these guys' job was to figure out the mystery and stop them. But during that mystery, and this is the kind of where the chase scene thing happened, was they played a game called Food Chain.
Apparently, a real camp game. Justin has told me.
Yes, I've played this game at camp before. It has sometimes it's called natural selection, sometimes it's called but basically the core concept of the game is all the people are put into groups, and each group represents different animals on a food chain, and it goes from like mosquitoes to hawks, and basically you can tag people that are below you on the food chain and they get absorbed into your type of animal, and it's made to like show kind of like here's how natural selection works, and like even when a large group of things are eaten or whatever, you can still find that there are some of them out as satellites on the outskirts of things and stuff like that. So it's all a game about either everyone becomes a hawk in the end or the time runs out and then the lower species kind of come out and are like, I survived.
So,
But
can I be honest with you, Justin?
yeah.
So when we're in the game, and he says, he has the counselors call the kids together to play this game, and Justin takes a moment to explain to us like how the game works. And honestly, dude, when you did that, I was like, okay, cool, we'll get through this and then get back to the story.
Yeah.
Like I kind of honestly, I wasn't feeling it mostly, and it's not you. It's just I was like, oh, this is like a chase scene, and that never translates well to RPGs. It just doesn't like who can do that, So like I was ready to just like go through the motions, roll some dice meaninglessly, and be like, cool, can we unsolve the mystery now? Or
Yeah. That's the stigma of chase scenes a lot of times in role playing games, is that a chase scene happens and people go about it because it's just like, well, here's a slowdown that's not combat or role playing. Here we go.
And well, as you can probably all guess, because we're here right now, that is not what happened. God, we had a blast, and that chase,
Yeah.
I think, took up the majority of the game we played that session.
Yeah, we
And
usually do like 2.5 hour sessions, and that took up at least an hour.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I feel like any of us could have kept going. Everyone had some like just really great scenes. Like each character had like a shining scene in there that we're not going to forget anytime soon. And it felt like, we were playing a game of tag, but it felt like we had accomplished something great. It felt like killing the dragon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fantastic. So
Yeah, it ended with like a go-kart in a pool and like other kids on bikes, like running into trees and stuff, and like a lot of like 80s level taunting. Fuck, I could watch kids fall off bikes all goddamn day.
I'm surprised we're not watching kids fall off bikes right now.
Yeah. But yeah, it's That's one of the things that I really like to focus on when I'm doing a chase scene. Actually, is giving each player a potential chance to shine. I mean, the dice always have other plans, but like at least trying to set them up to have a moment where everyone gets to do something cool during that scene. Um, but yeah, I had all of them play mosquitoes, and they were getting chased by everyone throughout the camp, and they noticed some things that were weird and out of place during while everyone else was playing it. But there was also the central part of like you're still in a massive game of tag, and there was like stealing bikes and climbing trees and getting in go-karts and like knocking other kids out and stuff like that. It was a good time.
It really was. Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
fantastic. Um,
But yeah,
so
that love doing a good chase scene.
I would love to kind of, because I haven't done this yet with you. I'd kind of like to look behind the DM screen here and pry a little
Mm.
bit into your process. And I think the biggest question I have up front, because I cannot tell, because like I know for a fact, having played games with you on both sides of the screen, where we're both players, or I'm DMing or you're DMing, that uh, you can improv like a motherfucker, right? Uh,
Thanks.
yeah, I mean, it's you're. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons we enjoy playing with each other so much is we can just riff like that. But
Yeah.
that said, how much of that chase did you have pre-planned? Like, what did you have events already planned behind the screen, or like, yeah, tell me about that.
Yes and no. Like I had a general idea, and my general idea was I needed to corral you guys towards the event that they caught was in the cafeteria of the camp. But so my plan was I needed to corral you guys over towards that area somehow so that you could notice the next step in the mystery happening.
Mm.
But how you guys got there, I actually left up to the players to figure out how they made it that way. But like, granted, I did use some like some herding tactics of having like, specifically having people come from the opposite direction to make you move in this direction and stuff like that. But ultimately, like, running into trees and grabbing go-karts and all that other stuff, that was up to you guys.
Okay.
And I kind of just reacted off of it, and then just tried to keep that general I don't want to say I was trying to put the chase scene on rails, but it was like, kind of like one of those standing roller coasters where like you're kind of a little bit you're on rails still, but you don't feel like you're in control of it at all because you're standing. um like that kind of deal.
So here's the
uh
thing, like that's blowing my mind right now is like now that you're saying this, I can see it in retrospect. We
mm,
ended up in the place in the camp where the next scene was happening, and never once did it seem like we were herded in that
yeah.
direction. We were just getting away from the kids, and it seemed like the most reasonable choice. And so, uh, yeah, this is kind of blowing my mind right now.
Well, so like part of that is, and this is one of like a really important tenet of doing a chase scene with someone, is establish what is on the line before the chase scene starts. So like before we started, I with all you guys, I was like, you need to not get tagged by these other kids. Like that was your objective at
Ooh,
that point in time. And by giving you guys that objective, that kept you in the player space of like, oh fuck, I can't let these other kids get me. Um, so like with any chase, you wanna establish with your players like, all right, here's what's gonna happen if you fail, and here's what's gonna happen if you succeed.
That is not
Your
even a
objective
whole
during this
land.
chase scene is to catch X or to get away from X. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
Um,
it was really clear.
yeah. So like that's like the first part of any chase is like establishing essentially
Phase.
who's the hunter and who's the
But
quarry
in
the chase scene. And like a lot of the times it's the majority of the time it's the players are the hunters, and whatever the creature person thing is the quarry. But you can also have scenes where like your players are being chased by something bigger and they're running away from it and trying not to get caught as the chase scene. Or you can even have uh multiple parties all kind of rat race chasing each other and stuff like that at the same time as well. But that's like the really important first step is like establishing like the clear cut, like this person is the quarry, this person is the hunter, and this is how it's going to interact.
Hmm.
Um, so, uh, and then after that, you kind of go into like your like, okay, well, is this happening in an urban setting? Is this happening in like an outdoor setting? You know, then you pick your setting like that, and then you kind of start building up your obstacles and like what's going to happen in it as like you know once you establish your setting, and for like then you kind of get into the a little bit of the nitty gritties of stuff, which depending on what system you're playing in can either be like kind of very freeform or it can be the biggest slowdown on the planet, depending on what you're doing. Um, I really like running chase scenes in games that have like much more open-ended systems, like powered by the apocalypse or the system that they use in Tales from the Loop and things like that, that are just like pass fail. You know, the player determines whether or not they meet they pass or fail. There's not like trying to meet a difficulty class and things like that. And the games that kind of have that bigger option to just describe what's going on from the player versus having the DM like feed you most of the information and like determine everything by a lot of little dice rolls, the less you have to like roll for it, the more fun the chase can be.
I will say that whenever we had to roll dice, it felt like it mattered.
Yep.
We weren't rolling just to run. If our pass fails definitely drove things along, i.e., there's a go-kart in the lake. You know, that felt
So
meaningful.
good.
It wasn't just
Yep.
like, oh, you rolled and now they're catching up to your go-kart. It's like, nope, go-kart's out of control. Into the lake you go.
Uh, yeah, it's really tough. Like I'm let's use D&D for an example because chances are most people are playing D&D. It's just the way of the role playing game world right now.
Indeed.
And D&D has my least favorite chase system out of any game possible because it just gets into words and words and words right away. It's like all right, so your players can use a number of actions equal to 3 plus their constitution modifier, and any that they want to make beyond their constitution modifier they need to start making constitution saving throws that starting at a DC 10 and increasing every time they use it to see if they take levels of exhaustion. If they take 5 levels of exhaustion, their speed becomes 0 and they are out of the chase. Ugh.
Yeah,
Like,
that sounded exhausting. I
yeah.
mean, that sounds really exhausting to the person who's like running it.
And like also you have to like they're like, oh, set up a map and establish like how far away the quarry is from you guys, and each turn you have to like track their movement of how many 5-foot squares they covered to catch up to the thing like that. And if they all and basically what you're doing is like wild dog pack tactics where you're just trying to run your quarry out to exhaustion to catch them. And if like you have so many failures and stuff, then your quarry can make high checks, and then at the end of each turn you roll a d20 and check on the table to see if there's an obstacle in the way, and then the obstacle table comes into play, and then there's like 10 different obstacles that you can choose that can happen, or nothing, which is boring. And then you have to make a bunch of other checks and saves and take some damage and roll for this and roll. It's all like the more time you have to spend just rolling and throwing stuff out there, the less time you're spending feeling like you're in a chase sequence. Like one of the cornerstones being a chase sequence.
I'm sorry.
What?
Can you say that exact thing again about the dice and the chase sequence? Because that was I just want to hear that all over again.
Oh, the more time you spend rolling dice, the less time you feel like you're in a chase sequence.
That's really good. That is really good.
Great. That is, I remembered what I said. Nice. So, because like part of being in a chase sequence is it needs to feel fast, and it needs to feel like you're doing this, because that's how like every good chase sequence that you see in a movie or a TV show or something like that is super duper fast. And like sometimes you get just like the setup shot of like, oh no, here comes the fruit stand that they're all gonna roll through and stuff like that. But otherwise it's just like quick cuts everywhere, and and so like if you have to like slow down and roll for each players, then it starts being like, okay, and you get people waiting for their turn, and then it just doesn't feel like the chase sequence anymore. And if your party splits up into different things, then you have to resolve each individual chase going on and stuff like that. Um it's just very wordy and technical instead of just being fun and action packed like a chase scene should be. So a lot of times, even in D&D, I like kind of just throw those rules out entirely, and use a much more simplified role system that's just like, I present some checks and some obstacles, and I have a certain number of obstacles that are going to be in the chase, and we base it whether or not your party passes or fails. Certain number of failures means one character lags behind, and a certain number of successes means maybe you catch up to the quarry. But having things like a gridded map and keeping track of like the space and distances and stuff like that, just you take all the fun out of it by measuring it, basically.
Yeah, like I often
um
feel like D&D has and yeah, I think I don't think D&D would deny this, but I feel like it has two modes. It has like your role playing, problem solving, whatever mode, and then there's combat. And everything changes once you get into combat. You roll that
oh yeah.
initiative dice, people are going in turns, and despite your best intentions, a lot of times it comes down to I rolled a hit. Do I hit? It loses this many hit points. Okay, next. And like
Moving on. Yep.
the thing is, like, even though it misses out a little bit on the story that you get when you're not in combat, the thing is that D&D does that type of combat really well. It's really focused on it. So it's fun as a game in and of itself, right? But I don't feel like the chase rules you just described get where that combat gets. In other words, like, I don't feel like, okay, let's stop the role playing, go into this chase mini game that's more dice oriented. It doesn't sound like it does what I would want it to do in any way, shape, or form.
They even in the DMG, they word it as like, think of this as a mini game in the middle of your campaign. The word mini game has come up multiple times when I was like doing chase research and stuff like this.
Oh, that's funny. I had no idea when I said that.
So like, uh, and so like D&D is very focused, like I said, on just like running everyone to exhaustion. Pathfinder, the second edition, is focused on the obstacles themselves, and it's all about like, every time a character overcomes an obstacle, they get a point, and you need so many points to complete the chase. But basically what you do is you just lay down obstacles in front of them, and it's not even really so much about the chase as it is just like overcoming all these little like mini obstacles in between you.
Well, that's really interesting. Like, if you
Yeah.
think about like chases in movies, like whenever I see her chase, I think two things: car chase, and also, I think for me, more favorably, I think of the marketplace chase, especially in like a good like kung fu flick, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, with fruit going everywhere.
Right, right.
People
And
yelling as you're like crouching tiger, hidden dragon off the top of like stalls and stuff.
and you're not just like watching two people running, and maybe
Yeah.
one of the person running behind gets a little closer. No, no, no. That's not what the camera catches. The camera catches those fruits. The camera catches like the two people carrying the pane of glass across the street. You know, like all the stupid little obstacles that everyone has to avoid. Same thing with car chases. So yeah, that obstacle oriented approach. Ooh, I like that. That's good. That sounds golden.
It's definitely more fun, and you should never be afraid to throw two people carrying a pane of glass in the middle of a busy street out in any of your chase sequences. You just like stuff like that just shouldn't be. You should just be ready to throw that in as much flavor as you like.
I don't care if it's a Stone Age game. Get that pane
Yeah,
of glass
flavor-
going across the
Yeah,
street.
flavor to taste with your chase sequences. But like you, how do I want to put this here? Oh, I lost my train of thought for a
See,
minute.
Justin is actually falling behind in the chase right now.
Yeah. Crane just became. Yep. Oh, yep. You moved up 30 feet and you're coming closer. Oh, so the thing I was talking about is the quarry should be infallible in terms of their ability to overcome the obstacles come up ahead of them. You know what I mean? Like if you're chasing someone like a thief or something that just stole somebody's purse or whatever, and they're running through this busy marketplace and stuff, you should never be making rolls for the thief. The thief should always just be the one that like jumps over the downed cart or anything like that and makes, continues the chase and stuff. The whether or not you catch them should be based off of the checks that the players make. You should never worry about the thief falling behind or anything like that, because it makes it A, cuts down on a roll for the DM, and B, just kind of makes that pressure of like, we got to do this or we can't, kind of more on the players, which is a little bit more fun for me.
Yeah.
I really like during chase scenes to feel like my players are kind of running it a little bit more than I am, and I'm kind of just like supplementing extra information towards them when it happens. To the point that often when I'm doing chase scenes and stuff like that, I'll completely stop having them roll if they're doing good descriptions and like actively role playing still during a chase scene. Um, uh, one of the best chase scenes that I've ever been involved in, not one that I ran personally, but one of the ones that I had a really good time doing and was like, damn, that was a fun chase scene, is a friend of ours whose name is Cable is running a Usagi Yojimbo game, which takes place in feudal Japan, but everyone's an anthropomorphic, or whatever. But we were having a chase scene where we were going after this pickpocket, and there were 3 players. One of them's a goat juggler who was like leaping from boxes and things like that, and just like kind of didn't care what kind of destruction was happening along the way. And another player was like a fox gambler who was like trying to be all sneaky and come up with really great ways to like try to corner this guy and stuff like that. And my character was a priest rhinoceros who had like no business being in the chase in the first place, because he was just like would just plow through stuff. So instead, they were doing stuff, my character was helping pick up carts and like apologizing to everybody along the way and stuff like that. And like
Beautiful.
When you get into that kind of flavor, when your characters are like, I'm doing this and this is happening and I'm really thinking about how my character would act during this moment and stuff like that, then throw out the dice and just like talk about it as though you all just watched a really good movie and you're like, oh my god, and then this happened in it, and then if everyone's hooked, then don't worry about the dice. Is kind of one of my big things for chase scenes, or make them only for make and break moments, basically.
Yeah, that's wow. That was a lot. That was a lot of good stuff right there. So first, anyone who's in the chat that has a question for Justin or about like chase scenes in general, by all means, definitely feel free to type those out. We'd be happy to answer them, or I'll be happy to make Justin answer them. But I want to take you back a little bit to where you said that you were setting up the scenario of the players are chasing a thief, and you said the thief shouldn't roll dice, that the pursuer should. Okay, so let's reverse that. What if the players are the thieves, or what if they are the pursued? Do you kind of hold to that same philosophy? Are they the only ones rolling dice, and the pursuer is infallible?
Yeah, for the most part. Like sometimes it depends on, like it's very situational. Like say the players are being chased by a dragon through an urban city street, and this dragon is blowing down fire after them because they're holding the dragon's egg or something like that. That dragon shouldn't have to worry. But what it's doing is what's causing all the obstacles and stuff for the players, and whether or not they manage to escape and hide somewhere, or they end up being like caught up in their own feet and stuff and now have to fight a dragon in the middle of the city, is completely based off of how well they do. Like if city guards are chasing after you guys, the city guards know the city better than the players do, most likely. So like for them maneuvering through the streets and stuff like that shouldn't be an issue. You know what I mean? And if it's city guards chasing after you, people are going to get out of the way of the city guards, much like how people will get out of the way of the police if they're running at things, or they'll yell at them and scream at them, as they should. But anyway, like people will, and that makes it easier for the hunters to move through places when they're the NPCs. Um,
with Halloween season coming up, not too far away, I'm like suddenly reminded of like the slasher movies, and where you see Jason is just like
mm,
walking slow as shit, but he's
right,
infallible. He never trips.
right,
He's always
and
after you, and it's up to
he
you to escape. And you're the one tripping over roots and like having
mhm.
cars swerve in front of you and everything.
that and that what that does is it creates menace,
God, does it ever? Oh
and
yeah.
that and having that juggernaut force behind you, be it city guards or what, it gives your players that moment of being like, oh fuck, I do not want this thing to happen to me. And it raises the stakes for the players. um
Yeah, that's good. That's really
yeah,
good. So
yeah.
when you run a chase,
Hmm.
um, how do you determine when it's over? Like, how do you know like Jason has caught you, or you escaped, or you caught the thief, or whatever?
So sometimes I'll just have like so many, if you do so many successes versus, like I might have a pre-planned chase might have 6 obstacles that they'll have to go up against as they're moving through this. If a player is able to overcome 4 of the 6 obstacles, or something like that, or get more successes than failures when going over these obstacles, then they're able to catch the thing. But if they fail more than they succeed, then the thing gets away. I like to run it based off of the rule of, are we still having fun?
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
which is, that's how I run my monsters in D&D. That's how I run anything. Is it still cool? Is it still fun? Is everyone enjoying themselves, or is it time to move on to the next scene? Um, so I kind of let that dictate a little bit, but also, if I have the chance to plan my chase scenes out, I'll usually set a certain number of obstacles and events, and like I usually map my chase scenes out like when people are plotting movies and stuff, and they do all the little animations just to show like bah, and then they move here and look like that. That's kind of how I plan mine out. Um, but a lot of times people will be like, "Oh, use a map, like a city map, to show where people are moving through the city and stuff." But if the players need that, then I'll put it in. But if they can just handle it being talked about, I'll just leave it without it. But
Yeah, I think you usually do a pretty good job of like theater of the mind with these things, and I have to say, our pacing, like when we run games, is different. Uh, your pacing is always very energetic, and like that's cool. Like you're never
mm,
waiting for anything. Like you're always in the thick of the action in your games, which is pretty rad. And I think
yeah.
that's another reason why your chase scenes feel as good as they do.
Mm,
Uh, okay, so we've been talking about obstacles and using some like technical terms, but let's kind of like speak to the newbies out there real quick.
okay.
And again, since we both know 5e and a lot of people know 5e, let's kind of use that as a reference point.
Sure.
Uh, what do these obstacles look like, right? Like it.
I,
Let's say like my character right now is running down a
mm,
street
okay.
chasing somebody. What? Well, as a DM, what are you telling me?
Okay. So say we're in an urban setting for this,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what I would do is, first off, I would base it off of like what kind of character you're playing and what your strengths are as a character, because I will want to give you a couple moments to like do things well.
Well,
Not
obviously, I'm
every,
playing a monk right now.
of
Obviously,
course you are,
yeah.
so you can do everything perfectly. Um, like just remember, like some of your player characters are like really good at running, jumping, and like spinning around and stuff like that, and some of your player characters are the fat kid in gym class. Like they're just yeah, it's like and that's real. That's like how people are. Like I'm the fat kid in gym class. That's totally me.
I hear you, buddy.
So
I was there
yeah.
running.
Yep.
Ooh, terrible.
Oh, who wants to run? But so I would set up things like kind of some stuff that we talked about already, like having the stalls and like general just groups of people moving through. Like maybe it's as simple as you just having to move through a crowd of people. So I might have you make an acrobatics check or an athletics check to depending on how you say you want to move through it. Like maybe you want to do the monk run across their heads thing. Well, let's make an acrobatics check to see if you fall. Or maybe you just want to like ignore people completely and just push through them and things like that. Well, that would be an athletics check to see. And I would kind of set the difficulty based off of what I think would be appropriate in my head, and kind of start going from there. But and then whether or not you succeeded, then I would say, all right, well, you managed to stumble through. Say you failed, I'd be like, well, you pushed through the crowd, but you got some pushback and stuff like that, and it definitely slowed you down a little bit. But you can still see them off in the distance a little bit running up ahead, but you need to get moving, kind of deal.
It seems like, and this is me reading between the lines of what you just said there, that you narrate the obstacles, but not necessarily how the players are to overcome it or like what you want them to roll. It sounds like you narrate the obstacles and then let the players decide how they want to deal with it, and then you tell them about the roll and whatnot. Does that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, because you gave a lot of options with coming up to that crowd. Yeah. And so you pretty much just say there's a crowd in your way. I mean, obviously you give it your Justin flourish with that, and then let the player be like, oh, I want to run across their heads. Oh, I want to bust through them. Oh, I want to intimidate them all into getting the F out of my way.
Exactly. That, like, as always, like, whatever you plan as a DM, your players are always going to come up with something cooler for the most part because they're the action heroes that want to be like running up the sides of walls and things like that and stuff. And you know, sometimes you get so entrenched in what you're building as a DM that you don't think about the basic thing that, you know, like I tipped the jar with the brain in it over and it smashes. Did I just beat your NPC villain? Like, you're like, fuck, it was a brain in a jar the whole time, and I didn't even think about that it's in a jar. Like, you know, things like that. So it's
yeah.
I like being a DM is like planning 90% of like what you have planned for a session, and then sitting down and realizing you're only going to use about 12% of what you plan because your players have other choices in mind. So I and part of it too is like setting up the situations, like I said, where different players with different abilities have different chances to shine during the chase scene. Like I like how you said I want to intimidate everyone to just like part like the Red Sea and stuff for me to get through and things like that. I didn't even think about someone running intimidate check for that crowd of people right then and there, but I could totally see like some orc running up and just going, you know, and like everyone just goes, fuck, gotta get out of that guy's way, you know, like, or, you know, the orc might do that and might be like, this is New York City, we don't care. And like, you're just another person yelling on the street.
Or like,
go
obviously,
get in the yelling in the street lane, please.
The history check to know the secret ways through the city so that you can gain some ground, or
sure.
What else do we got? How absurd can we make this?
The stealth rolls to break into someone's yard to climb up onto their roof.
Ooh, yeah.
Granted, in D&D it says you're not supposed to use bonus actions and reactions and stuff during chase scenes, but that's boring. Like it could be as simple as a wizard being like, I use Misty Step to get past this part of the crowd, and like I'm never gonna tell my players, sure, go ahead, like, I don't want you spending spell slots right now. Go ahead and spend those spell slots so that when we get into combat later you have less. That's gonna be fun.
That's just like, hey, this thing you built your entire character around, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Monk, you're cool. Keep monking about.
Yeah. They even say in the book, like, remember, casting a spell means you're not moving, so it might slow you down. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, wizards. That's just your voice that I hear when I read the DM sheet. But like, also, you're a wizard. You cast magic. Like, you studied all these years, and now someone's making you run instead of like teleporting, which you totally figured out how to do. Teleport, like, you know, go for it. Like even if the player is like, I'm high enough level that I cast teleport and I teleport right to the person, and it's like, okay, cool, then some other complications are going to happen when you get there and stuff, and like, what about the rest of your party that you left behind? You know, things like that. But like, I'm not a, if you got a magical solution to this, I had a player that was playing a warlock, and they used their Eldritch Blast to like give them extra boosts over like obstacles and stuff like that, which I was like, I'll allow it for this chase scene. I don't know if I'm going to allow it just to general during the game, but like,
I would like to say that's an important statement right there.
yeah,
I love to make that statement. Like, I don't want to set a precedent with this where you're using it to do this all the time, but I want to reward this because, like, technically, this is against the rules, but I want to reward this creativity at the moment.
yeah,
You know?
yeah. The rule of cool always takes over. Like that sounds. If I say that sounds awesome, I'm gonna let it happen because that sounds awesome, even if it's not a rule. Like if I'm like, damn, I want to see it happen just as much as the player wants to see it
like,
happen.
nowhere in the Eldritch Blast spell does it say there's like a kickback from that. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Even, but unless you get the one that lets you push things back 10 feet when you hit them with an Eldritch Blast. The
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
But I
But
mean,
even still, like, but because they were like, yeah, I want to do that, and as I try to get over it, I'll Eldritch Blast down so that I just get that little bit extra oomph over it, and I was like, yes, that's awesome, let's do that.
yeah, that's a great freaking visual.
Yeah, because and like always reward creativity over dice rolling, like anytime, not even just in chase scenes, in general when you're playing a game. If you're being creative and you come up with a really cool way to get around the rubble in the road or the guys holding the pane of glass or anything like that, super cool.
So like one of my things in RPG design is the more rules you add into a game, like the more things you tell a player they can do, like there's rules for, it's almost like you're telling the more things they can't do.
Yeah.
Like the moment you give a rogue the like I mean, let's go back to like older D&D. We're giving a thief the ability to hide in shadows. That suddenly tells every other character they can't hide in shadows, right? Or like look at like the battle master fighter and all the things they can spend their supremacy dice on.
Yeah.
All of those things are suddenly things other characters can't do. You know.
Yeah.
I forget where I was going with that.
Only I can do this.
Where it tied into something we were just talking about.
Okay.
Yep. Totally derailed myself there.
Like, are you talking about setting up a situation where you'd rather tell your players you can do that versus telling your players you can't do that?
Oh yeah, I guess so. In terms of like the more rules you have in a system, the more things it says you can't do that. Like the moment you codify spells to such a degree that you can't say that Eldritch Blast gives a kickback, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I think goes into what you were saying earlier about you'd like to run chase scenes in like the Year Zero engine that Tales from the Loop has, and Apocalypse World, like things that are like a lot simplified on the systems.
Yeah, because those systems specifically have encoded into their rules of if your character succeeds on this, they get to tell you what happens. Like especially with like Power by Apocalypse and stuff, if you roll a 10 or above or on some, if your character rolls a 10 or above or something, they are in control of what's happening at that moment, not the DM. And that is where you get the best stuff to react to as a DM, is when your player starts throwing stuff into the scene as well. The more collaborative a chase scene is, the cooler it gets.
That's great advice for a chase scene and excellent advice for like any game session. The more collaborative it is, the more fun everyone has.
And like another thing I talked about earlier too was like giving everyone a chance to shine. Like in the middle of a chase scene, maybe just so maybe instead of the quarry like just being someone that runs, maybe they run into the middle of a crowd and throw their hood up and try to blend into the crowd, and now all of a sudden you need to start using perception rolls and stuff like that to try to pick them out and everything like that.
That's a good obstacle.
Like maybe they ran right into the middle of the cloaked figure festival where everyone puts cloaks and hoods up on their head and eats out of fruit carts, and now you know like throwing stuff like that like in the middle of it gives a player that's maybe better at perception than they are at acrobatics and athletics a chance to be like, there he is. or your halfling might be able to move through the legs of the crowd easier because they're little and things like that.
Yeah, and it our chase scene definitely, and when we played Tales from the Loop, it definitely felt that way. Like my character was more of a physical character, which is something I don't often do, but I got to climb trees to try and hide from people. Like I jumped over a bike at some point, I think.
Yep.
Dix was
Knocked
playing
a bunch of kids off their bikes. Yeah.
Dix was playing like the loner. He's the one who drove the go-kart into the lake and laughed about it the whole time. But yeah, it definitely felt like everyone had their scene in there, which was just really good. Really,
The minute that he
time.
started driving the go-kart around the pool, I was like, oh god, I hope he fails a roll. I just want to see that go. Like everyone there was like, I just want to see a go-kart go into that pool so badly.
I think we all actually said that out loud. We're like, God, we hope you fail this because it's going to be so much better than if you succeed.
Even Dix was like, I kind of hope I fail this. Like,
and the dice abided.
Yeah, sometimes the dice abide. So like, I think the less like outside measurable, like the TLDR is the less outside measurable stuff that you have to add into your chase scene, the more organic it feels. Like if you ignore the grid and you ignore like you just kind of like think of it as zone movement more than like per 5 foot square movement and stuff like that, the better it is.
Well, that was wow, dude. That was I was impressed with that chase scene when we went through it, and now that I've gotten a little look behind your screen and like see the gears turning in your head, like even more so. That was I have a lot to consider after this, frankly, and I hope some folks watching it do too. So I've heard rumors.
I think I think a lot of the times the DMs view it as like you got to have fun during it too. Like so I've known some DMs that are like, oh, it's just work, and I got to work to put this scene together and stuff like that. And if you're not having fun doing the chase scene, don't do the chase scene. Like you owe it to yourself as a DM to have just as much fun as your players are. And if and like the collaboration and stuff really helps towards that, because then it feels like you're all part of a group instead of an us versus you.
So,
kind of deal.
Speaking of work,
yeah,
rumor has it you're a professional dungeon master.
I am a professional dungeon master. I totally am. I have a website, justinsandragons.com.
And we'll put the link as soon as we finish this video. We'll put the link in the comments.
Where you can go and book me for all kinds of events and stuff like that. I'm also one of the professional DMs listed on Help Action, and I do virtual sessions mostly, but I also do a case-by-case sessions in and around Portland at the moment, though if some high roller really wanted to pay to have me come out to somewhere else and just treat me to the life of luxury, I suppose I could DM somewhere else.
God, if only I could. If only I could.
All right. Mm-hmm.
I will certainly say, like, I am picky about the DMs I like to play with. And not to the extent that I won't play with anyone. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, Justin is really is top notch. He is great at his craft. Hey, thank you, Brian, for sticking that in the comments for us.
What did Brian say?
So, do you have anything you want to say in closing?
Is it Brian Ross?
Brian Turnbull.
Oh, hi, Brian. Yeah, Brian. Woo. I play with him on Mondays, and he's great.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah, you're bringing your crew with you here, I see.
Yeah. Closing statements. You hire me. I have reasonable rates as far as I can tell, because there's no like baseline in this industry for being a professional DM. My games focus on action, adventure, and like a good healthy dose of humor. The best anyone's ever said about my DMing style is that they feel like they're playing in a like an episode of D&D that was directed by Taika Waititi, which was like, oh my god, thank you so much.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like, wow, okay, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said. But yeah, hire me. I
Yeah.
work with kids, I work with adults, I work with brand new players, I work with experienced players. I specialize in teaching people how to play D&D that have never done it before, and my core belief is that everyone and anyone can and should play role-playing games.
And I will also add in, because I'm also, this is, I feel another really impressive aspect of you is if you're looking to try something that isn't D&D, maybe you
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
like the idea of Dungeons and Dragons, but fantasy isn't really your thing, but you're like
Mhm.
really into Star Wars, or you've been playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, you want to try something else.
Yeah.
Justin knows a lot of games, and when we were getting into Tales from the Loop, I told him straight up, like, hey, I haven't read this book in like a year or two. Should I brush up on it? And he's like, nah. And he walked us right through it, and it didn't even feel like we were learning. We were learning as we were going. We were playing from the moment we got in there, and
Yeah.
he only brought up the mechanics when it mattered. Uh, yeah, man, you're good at what you do. I
Oh,
don't know
thank
how else to
you.
say it, but
Likewise, my dude. Yeah.
thanks, buddy.
Um,
Thanks.
yeah, I one of the other things too is I also have a if you get me the materials, I will learn it for you service. So like if you have a specific RPG that you're like, man, I've always wanted to play Alien, but no one around me wants to run it, and I would just love to get into it. If you provide the materials, I will learn the system and get it ready to go for a game for you.
And hey,
Um,
if anyone's looking for like Halloween one shots, that's a great one.
oh yeah.
And
Oh.
Justin does tension real well and menace, like he said.
Yeah, Monster of the Week, all that good stuff. Yeah, I really, I really want to run a superhero game. I really want to play in a superhero game, but I would really love to run a superhero game. Uh,
I don't want to take up any more camera time, but I want to pick your brain about what systems you like and what systems you don't, because I haven't found a
oh,
good
okay,
one
yeah,
yet.
I'm
But
happy to talk about that.
yeah. So I won't make everyone sit through that one. That'll be another video sometime.
Uh, I can, I can tell you my favorite system right now, just my number one favorite, if you
Okay,
want.
yeah, hit me.
Okay, so my number one. Ah, it's over there. Okay. Anyways, my number one absolute favorite system, and this feels like very sacrilegious to me because of working at a game store and everything. But my number one favorite system is Toon, which is a Steve Jackson game,
You have spoken well of Tune for a long time.
which like I can't stand Munchkin and a lot of the other Steve Jackson like card and board games that he does, but the Toon game that came out like way back in, it's totally out of print now and stuff like that, where you literally play as a cartoon character, like Looney Tunes style. And you just like each episode, today we're doing a Ghostbusters episode, or today we're doing like an episode that takes place at the Pie Factory and things like that. And you just act wacky. If you get knocked out, you come back either when 2 minutes has passed in the real world or when the next scene change happens. Like you just get to be wacky goofballs with each other, with some dice rolling and some like shenanigans mixed in.
Yeah.
And it's just I love that, like, you know ep- no real plot line from episode to episode, just like these are the cartoon characters in this setting today. That is by far my absolute favorite role-playing system.
Oh man, that
Yeah.
sounds hella fun for superheroes and other things, really.
Oh yeah, you can
Uh,
do whatever with it.
yeah, I think
But yeah,
I
goofy as
I
shit.
like Steve Jackson's RPG-ish type things in terms of like, well, at least in terms of Tune and the like fighting fantasy novels and stuff like that he did
Yeah.
back in the day. I don't think there's new ones coming out, but anyway.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Uh,
Anyone want to play the Red Dwarf role-playing game with
what?
me? Yep.
What? Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. How about the Sailor Moon role-playing game? Anybody?
These are things I don't have on my shelves and did not know existed. Like, my libraries are on the corner, so I can't really show it on camera. But,
Your
man,
library looks like a cave.
yeah, it's farther down in the dungeon, past the troll lair.
Yeah, can I ask? Can I ask what this like slightly intestinal looking cave is all about?
I mean, I think you just spelled it out there. Underneath the Crumbling Keep, we have many strange tunnels, and we don't quite know where they all go.
Oh.
But it's really great if you miss garbage day. You can just kind of throw your stuff down there and forget about it. And in a week, there's only a trail of slime where it was. So,
Oh, cool. Well, that's handy.
yeah, yeah. Like people are
Okay.
like, "Oh, you live in a Crumbling Keep? Isn't that drafty?" And it's like, yeah, but it has its advantages. No one
But is
bothers
it up
you.
to code? Hmm.
No, but any code person that comes doesn't really make it back out again. So it's.
They also disappear in a trail of slime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Why have a dungeon if you can't feed things to it? Well, this has been great, Justin. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us about chase scenes. That I feel like I just learned a lot. Again, if you want to check out Justin's work, go to justinsanddragons.com. That's Justins, as in plural, Justins, and dragons.com. And again, you can find the link in the chat. Thanks to Brian Turnbull. And
Yeah, Brian.
yeah, Brian.
Woo! Shout out to Brian. Can't stop shouting out to that guy.
Big shout out to Brian.
Yep.
And this has really been great. And
Yeah.
I can't wait to play with you again, buddy.
Oh man, yeah. I'm super stoked to do more stuff. Thanks for thinking I'm great.
Yeah, well, you make it easy.
Yeah.
Well, have a great rest of your day, folks. I was going to say good night, but people watching the replay, yeah, have a good night anyway. Take care.
Have a good any time of day, to be honest.
You deserve
Like,
it.
Just take some time for you, though. Just yeah.
Yeah.